The story of how cocoa was introduced to Ghana is often told with great admiration and a sense of national pride. Central to this narrative is Tetteh Quarshie, a blacksmith from Mampong Akuapem, who is credited with bringing cocoa seeds to the then Gold Coast in 1879. This single act not only transformed Ghana's agricultural landscape but also positioned the country as one of the world's leading cocoa producers. However, as with many historical accounts, the story of Tetteh Quarshie's role in this significant event has been told in different ways, with some myths obscuring the true nature of his journey. Of all the tales about how cocoa first arrived in Ghana, two versions of the story have become the most popular. The first, widely accepted as factual, is that Tetteh Quarshie brought the cocoa pot from Fernando Po, now Bioko, in Equatorial Guinea during one of his travels. The second story, however, has often been viewed with skepticism. It claims that Tetteh Quarshie smuggled the cocoa seeds by swallowing them to avoid detection at colonial checkpoints. These stories, while entertaining, leave room for deeper exploration into the truth behind how cocoa, a crop that has since become the backbone of Ghana's economy, really made way to the country. While the legend of swallowing the seed continues to be part of the local folklore, there is little historical evidence to support it. The truth is far from more practical and highlights Tetteh Quarshie's ingenuity. But before delving into the real story, it's essential to recognize the broader context of Tetteh Quarshie's journey and how it influenced the future of Ghana. Before becoming synonymous with cocoa, Tetteh Quarshie was known for his skill as a blacksmith. Born in 1842 in the eastern region of Ghana, Quarshie was of Ga descent and came from a family who was very into farming. His profession as a blacksmith was highly valued as it provided him with the opportunity to travel within and outside the country for work. It was during one of these journeys that he found himself in Fernando Po, which he encountered cocoa. While Tetteh Quarshie was not initially a farmer, his travels and works exposed him to various agricultural practices, and it is believed that his interest in cocoa was sparked during this time. Cocoa had been cultivated in other parts of West Africa before, but it had not yet reached the Gold Coast. Quarshie saw its potential and, being a man of foresight, decided to bring it back home. However, the version of the story that claims he swallowed the cocoa seeds to avoid detection at customs is largely considered a myth. The journey from Fernando Po to the Gold Coast was long, and traveling by sea in the 19th century was no small feat. It is highly unlikely that anyone could have swallowed seeds and endured such a journey without medical consequences. So how did Tetteh Quarshie successfully smuggle the cocoa pods into the Gold Coast? The answer lies in his resourcefulness. Upon returning from Fernando Po, Tetteh Quarshie, like other travelers at the time, had to pass through a colonial checkpoint. The authorities were vigilant about people bringing in foreign plants or goods, as they sought to control the introduction of crops and maintain their own agricultural monopoly. Quarshie, aware of this, came up with a clever plan. As a blacksmith, he carried a toolbox wherever he went. This box contained his essential tools, which were critical for his work. Knowing that customs officials were unlikely to check his toolbox, he decided to hide the cocoa pods there. He managed to fix 6 cocoa pods into the box, ensuring that they remained undetected throughout his 6-week journey back to the Gold Coast. The seeds inside these pods would go on to change the course of Ghana's agricultural history. But the story doesn't end with the successful smuggling of the cocoa pods. Once back in the Gold Coast, Tetteh Quarshie faced the challenge of growing cocoa in a land where the soil and climate had yet to prove favorable for such a crop. When Tetteh Quarshie returned to the Gold Coast, he initially tried to plant the cocoa seeds in Accra, the capital city. However, his first attempt was unsuccessful. Accra's soil, which was predominantly sandy and clayey, was not suitable for cocoa cultivation. Despite his efforts, the seeds did not take root, and Quarshie's dream of growing cocoa in the Gold Coast seemed to falter. It was a significant setback, but Tetteh Quarshie was not deterred. He realized that to successfully grow cocoa, he needed to find a location with the right soil conditions. It wasn't until he traveled to Mampong Akuapem, a town in the eastern region, that he found the fertile soil necessary for the cocoa plants to thrive. In Mampong Akuapem, Tetteh Quarshie found the perfect conditions for cocoa cultivation. The area's rich, loamy soil and favorable climate allowed the seeds to germinate, and within a few years, cocoa trees began to flourish. Quarshie's successful cultivation of cocoa in Mampong Akuapem marked the beginning of what would become one of Ghana's most important agricultural industries. Over time, the knowledge of cocoa cultivation spread, and other farmers in the region began to adapt to the crop. By the early 20th century, cocoa had become a significant export for the Gold Coast, with the country eventually becoming the world's largest cocoa producer in 1911. Tetteh Quarshie's role in introducing cocoa to Ghana has cemented his place in the country's history. His foresight and determination transformed the agricultural landscape and provided economic opportunities for generations of farmers. Cocoa had since become one of Ghana's most valuable exports, contributing significantly to the nation's gross domestic product and providing livelihoods for millions of Ghanaians. But beyond his contribution to agriculture, Tetteh Quarshie's story is one of ingenuity and resilience. As a blacksmith, he was not a trained farmer, yet he recognized the potential of cocoa and took bold steps to introduce it to his homeland. His story serves as a reminder of how one individual's vision can have a lasting impact on a nation. In recent times, some of the myths surrounding Tetteh Quarshie's story have been debunked. A family member of Tetteh Quarshie, in a recent interview, indicated that he did not swallow cocoa beans to bring them to Ghana because in the 1870s, traveling was difficult. There were no airplanes, so people traveled by sea. Tetteh Quarshie traveled by ship, and it took him 6 weeks from Ghana to Fernando. The family member further explained that it would have been impossible for Quarshie to swallow the seeds and keep them intact during such a long journey. Instead, it was his clever use of the toolbox that allowed him to successfully transport the parts. Tetteh Quarshie's story is a powerful testament to the impact one person can have on a country's future. While the myths surrounding his journey continue to be told, the real story is just as fascinating. His decision to bring cocoa to the Gold Coast set the stage for Ghana to become a global leader in cocoa production, a legacy that endures to this day. Through his ingenuity and determination, Tetteh Quarshie not only introduced Ghana's most profitable cash crop, but also inspired future generations to innovate and take risks for the betterment of their communities.